Episode 21.
So, to introduce you to everybody.
Yeah, we are filming probably.
Probably.
Hello.
To introduce, for those that don't know, this is Preston Lynn. Goes by many different things. Was forementioned in a previous episode as a French bulldog in a human body.
Oh, yeah.
Not too far off.
Yeah, I can see it.
He is our manager of the Norman store.
Correct.
He is head of formulations with Define Nutrition. Hope to talk about some Define today. Man, part of the original Norman crew.
Woo.
There was we got the OG Norman staff to get back together.
Reunited.
Yeah, kind of crazy. I see you guys maybe once or twice a week now, where we used to see each other pretty much every day.
Yeah.
Especially you two.
Almost never together now too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've missed each other a lot. Yeah, it's weird. You go from working with somebody every day to literally not seeing them at all, but like once or twice a week. And it's like one of them's on manager meeting when most of the time we have our phones down because we're going to the bathroom. You put a meeting at 8 a.m. I don't know what else you want me doing.
You gonna be in bed or in the bathroom?
That's my time. That's when I do it.
Managers in bathroom? Is that not what it stands for?
It started as managers in bed, but it really has transitioned to managers in bathrooms.
I'm just happy we're all so comfortable with each other.
I don't even turn my mic on mute anymore.
We're all going to be a part of this.
Yeah. Really shed some light on what our manager meetings look like. I shared something on my story recently where it was in the middle of a manager meeting a couple weeks ago, and all three of you had your phone laying down, facing up at your ceiling, and I'm just staring at my computer screen with like three blank screens.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah.
You wanna mute your phone?
You're just playing videos on Instagram.
Am I really? Whoops. Oopsie daisies. I didn't even hear that.
I did.
Did you want to hear the rest of it?
I'm okay.
Seemed really interesting.
But yeah, someone noticed because there was three blank screens. Someone noticed that two of the three, I think it was you two, that were both in the bathroom.
Oh yeah,
that's us.
Managers pooping.
That's right. It was even better when we shared a bathroom in Norman. We on a same schedule, so we just had to halvesies.
Halvesies, not one on top of the other.
You ever seen the group poop toilets where it's like three all stacked up next to each other?
We had at the original fraternity house for Kevin and I. Did you ever see the old teak house for the one you lived in?
No, I think the one that was the one that Teak had whenever I started going to school there.
Yeah. That one, I lived in that one, and we had a bathroom that had two toilets, and they just had like a little half wall between them, and they were back to back. A fraternity house bathroom with back-to-back toilets, like that. You don't let your imagination go with that.
A lot of fun happened there, I'm sure.
No, that place was yucky. The whole house, not just the double toilet.
Fraternity house?
A blighted house that was a fraternity house. They're like, we're tearing this down when you guys move out. So
you guys didn't have Tanner Davis
go whatever
living at the house at that time.
It's like a little
dude. The Teak house when I lived there was
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, oh yeah. Dude, we'd have a party in the basement, and you'd wake up in the morning, and of course, because we're all in college and just drinking all the time, you'd wake up and it'd be totally clean in the basement. And you'd be like, oh yeah, cool. Like not think anything of it. And of course, it's Tanner Davis, friend since high school that would be up like through the night cleaning the entire basement by himself, and like no one ever even noticed that. There's like, we have a party, and the basement looks clean afterwards.
He had like, I'm just imagining Tanner Davis in like an apron and those like elbow length like yellow plastic gloves, like
dude, messy. Dude, if he doesn't currently own a pair of those,
I would be surprised.
So sorry, we're getting on a tangent here. But Tanner Davis is the kid. When we lived in the fraternity house, his room was absolutely immaculate. Like his desk would have things organized on it, and to mess with him, we would go and we would move something like that far. If you can't tell, I just moved something a few inches. And when he was at class or something, and then you'd come back like that evening into his room and it would be back where it was.
That's funny, man.
So Preston,
Oh yeah,
things,
hey.
Hey guys.
how are things in Norman, man? You went to give a little bit more of an introduction, man. Obviously, you first started when we were opening up the Norman store. You started part-time. I mean, you were working hours or started training pretty much when we opened. Started working hours pretty immediately, bumped up to full-time very shortly after that, especially once we got a couple of months in and a little bit busier into the new year. And so have gone from brand new guy to be managing the entire store down in Norman, man, and running the show. And Thomas and I are both have moved on to different things and have different responsibilities these days, man. So kind of cool to watch the whole transition. But how are things going down in Norman, man?
Going
Mr.
great.
Honcho.
Yeah, it's been cool to see it from essentially day one to where it is now, being on the floor from start to finish. Growing like crazy. Can't complain. I mean, summer's been good. Staff's doing well. Everyone's progressing like they should. For the most part, going off without a hitch, but just trying to keep it growing, trying to not let the progress stall.
No.
That has been a very impressive thing since we opened, and I think Thomas played a big role in this, but obviously you as well, was being in a college town. Norman, for those that don't know, it is home to Oklahoma University, so very big campus, makes up quite a bit of the population in Norman. We expected to have very different seasons than we did at somewhere like our Quail Springs store, which is more suburbs.
Mhm.
And we expected to have, busy times when the semester was in session and very slow times and, during winter break and especially during summer break where kids are gone for 2-3 months. But man, I think every single year, but especially this year, it seems like we've been just as busy, if not busier, during the summer. And I think that was a huge strategy from Thomas and you of not just targeting the kids, but the entire population there, which a lot of people don't realize that Norman is a massive population. It's the third biggest city in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
With I think close to 120,000 people.
Yeah, 116, I think, last time.
That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Man.
Yep.
Yeah, I think as the year goes on, it's instead of bracing for the ebbs and flows, you just change the game plan. We don't attack winter like we do summer whenever students are gone, or August whenever they show back up again. But as long as you keep changing the way that you're approaching it, I think it's very possible to do what we have done, which is have some of our busiest months be when students aren't there.
Yeah. I think a big part of that too is like, especially at the beginning, our game plan, kind of like what Kevin was alluding to, was like, don't just focus on the college kids. I think that's potentially people's, I don't know, not to judge, I guess, but I feel like people, when you hear Norman, you think, oh, college kids. And I feel like that is like this surface level thought of like, oh, because, and again, I get it. I understand why, but we've heard, whether it's TRIAD or other businesses, it's like, oh, you need to be right next to campus. You need to be right over here. You need to be right this in the like midst of it. And then you like start to realize that college kids are great, but I don't know if I'd want them to be my main demographic for my businesses, just because they come and go. They're only here for a few years. Like at most, typically they're here for 4 years if they're coming and visit, like they're from, out of town. And so it's like, you lose a lot during the summer. You lose it, like your ebbs and flows can be crazy. And so I think for us, we always had that idea of like target the full year round, like Norman and more people have that, try to be that our main demographic. And then anything we get from college kids on top of it, it's not like we didn't try, but anything we get on top of college kids is almost just like, icing on the cake.
That's a bonus.
Yeah. And then it's like, cool. We see spikes whenever the kids come back as opposed to drops when the kids leave.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a really good way of putting it, man. And I think one, like side benefit to it as well is that, we see a lot of, because especially in the Edmond area by our Quail Springs store, it's a lot of young parents and young kids. High schools are freaking massive up in the Edmond area, and a ton of them go down to OU. So it's really convenient to have a location down there for kids that
Mhm.
started shopping with us when they were in high school or down there.
Yep.
And even vice versa, they find out about us when they're in Norman, and then they move back home, around their family, back
Right.
up in Edmond, and they've got a location up there.
Yeah, and UConn now too. I have a ton of people who shop with us now that go to OU during the school year, and it's
Yeah.
like I can't tell you how many times I've been like, "Oh, dude, when you're back at school, we've got a Norman location just like right over by like Target and Guitar Center and Surf Bar," and they're like, "Oh, really?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." And I was like, "Yeah, that's where I was for 2 years."
Mm-hmm.
Enough about that. I'm wearing a really cool shirt right now. This is my birthday present from Will. It says Glizzy Gladiator, and it's got a hot dog on it and 2 pair of tongs. And I had to live up to this. And so before I got here, I had Sonic and I had 3 hot dogs.
Good for you. How were the hot dogs?
Subpar.
How you feeling though?
A little speepy. So I'm gonna hit a quick snooze real quick. You guys carry on, and
You want a little snooze juice?
so my grandpa used to call it when I'd stay up at night. That's what he'd give me. Yes, I'll have some bourbon.
You wanna tell people about this one?
Oh yeah, so we Laurel and I just went to Colorado for a wedding. It was beautiful. We went to Steamboat Springs, which is a ski town. Super cool place though. Which is super unique to places in Colorado, especially like ski towns, is that the majority of the places, including houses, hotels, Airbnbs, and restaurants, do not have air conditioning because they typically don't need it. Like it doesn't really get that hot. So when we were in Steamboat, nobody that was there for the wedding, not a single hotel room that anybody was in or Airbnb that anybody stayed at had air conditioning. And Steamboat had the hottest week it had in like 10 years. And it was like 98 plus degrees pretty much every day we were there. And luckily it cools off at night because of like the elevation and stuff. But oh my goodness, did I want air conditioning so bad.
That's
like,
wild.
We were at a restaurant and we were just like sweating. It's so hot in there. Dude, it's crazy. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know. I guess, if you live like, there's places like there's places in Florida that you don't see a lot like houses with heat because it just doesn't get that cold. But
That's crazy to think about. I mean, it makes sense.
it couldn't be me.
Yeah.
I'd rather have no air conditioner, or I'd rather have no heater than no air conditioner. I would die.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But anywho, this is Law's whiskey, which is made in Colorado, I believe Denver, and it's Kevin's birthday, and we always exchange bottles of alcohol for birthdays. And I was like, you know what? Might as well get you a Colorado one while I'm in Colorado. So we're gonna
Appreciate
drink
you.
it. Yeah,
Makes
and it's a
sense.
super cool looking bottle too, which
Yeah.
definitely influenced the purchase. Not gonna lie, but I had heard of it, and it's got good ratings, so we'll try a little scooch. Smells good. Very
Does.
sweet smell. Cheers.
Oh, like you want to trade?
Yours look better. Does smell nice. Ooh, way smoother. Very nutty.
It is very nutty. I like a nutty whiskey though. What?
You're a nutty guy. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Preston, you want to huff some fumes?
Smells nutty.
You would know what nutty smells like.
Hey now. You just said you like nuts on your podcast.
Well,
Mm.
well, this took a turn. How does it feel taking such a non-traditional route to the long-term goal that you have, where becoming the manager of Norman obviously doesn't directly align with the path that you want to be on long-term with the company? Obviously, define and formulating and stuff is kind of your main passion, but it's kind of a unique path to go like base level employee, AT, then manager of a store, to then kind of going where it's obviously not the ladder, I guess. We always try to take away the idea of a ladder, and we always explain it more like a rock climbing wall with like different paths. Sometimes lateral moves make more sense than going up. But tell me your feeling towards that, because I know it's something that as a company is super appreciated, because we always preach like be where you're needed. But
Yeah, I mean, looking back on the last almost 3 years now, I don't think I'd change anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think what going a different route has presented me with is a different method of learning. It's learning being on the floor. It's learning customers. It's learning who's actually going to buy the product someday.
Yeah.
As well as buy the product that you're currently making.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to do everything that we expect of back end formulations, understanding markets, who you're actually trying to target without having been talking to those target people.
Yeah, for as long as you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you're that removed, it's tough.
Yeah, for sure. And the ability to see ebbs and flows as well. What becomes popular? I mean, it takes one TikTok or one YouTube video, somebody on Joe Rogan to say one thing for it to go off in a store, but you might never actually experience that unless you're in the store. Right. So to be able to keep up to date with the most recent hot topic in the industry or whatever it might be, I think it's just been a different opportunity to learn. And the cool thing has been to be able to take the things that I'm learning on the floor, talking to people and whatever it may be, and actually apply those on the back end to define things. So, like I said, I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, I'm looking forward to things in the future, but I think one of the nice things about going a different path is I love the other path that I took too. As much as long-term goals are very much define involved, formulations, things of that nature. I love TRIAD. I love working on the floor. I love taking customers. So,
well, I think one of the most important things, and this is something that I think people in business in general, but I don't necessarily mean like owners. I just mean people who work in businesses. I remember even working at the hospital, this being something that I thought was really important and preached a lot to people, is the value of perspective. You have such a higher perspective, not just, and everything you're saying is obviously like paramount to your ability to formulate long-term, is like understanding and not being like, hey guys, what's popular in the store? Like it's, you just live it. But the outside thing of that, of like, you even long-term one day sitting in a defined meeting and something about a store pops up and you're like, no, I have a perspective of running a store. I actually know what that looks like. And this might not be exactly like what it seems. This makes sense on paper, but in store, this maybe doesn't necessarily make as much sense as it sounds like it does. And I think there's such huge value in that. Something that I've talked to Kaylin and Will a lot about, where like they're a little bit more unsure of their long-term path, and that's totally fine. But one of the best things that you can gain in the meantime, that is like one of the most valuable things I think you can gather, is perspective. Coming to a new store, understanding the difficulties of, you know, not your first day working at a store, it already has X amount of customers or whatever, like going out, building more the first time relationships with gyms or whatever. There's so much different things that go into each individual store in general, but especially a new store, and being able to understand that perspective, whether you're a regional manager or you're working for Define, that perspective of stores and what it actually takes to get a store from point A to point B, I think will be valuable long-term no matter what.
Yeah, man. And being able to learn how to work with a team too, where if you're one person sitting in a room formulating, man, like, you know, one day if you grow the company to where you want it to be, you're going to have to be working with a lot of people, man.
For sure.
I know it's something you and I have talked quite a bit about, pretty much that of like, the path of managing and the path of going from a base level and having to go through all of the ebbs and flows and growing pains that came with it. If anything, I mean, my current title is manager there, but the skills that I'm learning managing people is something I'll have to do for the rest of my life.
Right.
Whenever it comes to Define, like something I try to tell people all the time is, as much as formulations are my baby, that's my main thing that I'm into right now. Like we'll eventually have a team of people that are working on it, and learning skills now of how to help manage people and understand and communicate better with people, I think is going to be invaluable in the future.
Yeah. And that's huge for when you, that I'm kind of learning now, is when learning how to work with other people and trust other people is, you know, continuing to work with formulations, especially as that position and that role grows and becomes, you know, more work and has more responsibility, is you start to become removed from the store. So where you've got the original perspective of what generally does well and what doesn't do well in stores, that is forever changing. So when it comes to reformulating a lot of the defined stuff that we've had to this year, and not had to, but really wanted to, and it's been awesome reformulations on a couple of products, and obviously some new stuff, and even some new stuff to come, is putting trust in you and the rest of the team. When you come up with a formula that you're extremely excited about, and then we bring it to the rest of the team and they're excited about it, it's like, okay, well, they're the ones with the perspective. And like, I think our test products is a really good one that has, it didn't used to include a couple of ingredients, but we swapped a couple and included Fedosia and Tomcat, which have become very popular. And I've seen it, kind of grow in popularity, but you being really excited about it because you've put the time and the effort and the research into trusting those ingredients, and then being able to take it to the rest of the group and them trusting it and knowing that it's genuinely being asked for out in the community. It's not just perceived popularity, that it will actually do well. Is I don't know a whole lot about when you were at least originally putting the formula together and we were kind of getting the ball rolling, is if it were just me putting it together, I wouldn't have had a lot of trust in it. But having trust in you guys, knowing that you've watched the market since I've left the store and are more up to date with it, gave me a lot of trust in you guys to release that. And it's done extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to know that, like, hey, you understand the science, you back the research and whatever you're finding about it, and you want to put it into a product, that's one thing that's cool, and it gives you some level of confidence. Whenever you hear from people working on the floor, though, that, hey, this ingredient's been talked about, like, I've had people ask me questions twice a day for the past 2 weeks. It's like, oh, cool, this is actually something that's worth jumping on as well, for purposes of like what the general public is going to like too. And I think that's the fine line between me formulating products just that I think are cool and for ingredient profiles that I want personally, versus what people want, what's going to be able to help other people the best.
Yeah.
Well, it's really unique too. And I think one of the underrated things, and kind of similarly to what you're both talking about, but in a slightly different perspective, is one day formulations and things will continue to be your baby, almost kind of like how Norman is. And I think you being a manager, going through the trust it takes to trust somebody else with a store that you've been at since almost the very beginning, you having a practice and experience with being able to hand off jobs, delegate down things, or even have somebody take on an entire project, like having never done anything like that, to now when that day comes, I think you having as much trust in your fellow man will definitely benefit from that, because you've had experiences and will have a really big experience one time the day you walk away from Norman, because that is a unique deal for sure. When you walk away for the first time and you're like, okay, I'm just not going to work here like ever.
Yeah.
And somebody else has to do it. And I have to make sure that it don't light on fire.
Yeah. It's something I'm definitely looking forward to, but something also that I've had that thought about of like, whenever it comes to the things that I love, the store, the formulas or whatever, like my initial instinct is control. Like I love having control over it. And I think that's more of a normal thing. And to learn what I would call like skill of letting go and being able to delegate,
it is
and
a
being
skill.
able to trust other people. And if you don't trust them, to help build them up to the point where you need them to be, has been equally terrifying as it has been cool.
Yeah. Right.
That's I had definitely had the irrational fear myself, and I knew it was irrational, but it was just a major fear whenever it was Kaylin that originally took all of my hours at Quail Springs.
Yeah, I'd have that fear too then.
And we were starting to open up Norman and do build out. So we pulled all of my hours as we were doing that. And obviously once we opened Norman, I started working hours again. But there was especially that first week of like, what if everybody decides to stop shopping with us because I'm not in store anymore?
Yeah.
Like, what an irrational fear, but I could not. It's every day for the first 7 days. I was deathly afraid that was going to happen.
And then you found out they like us more and they shop with us more often now that you're not there.
Yeah. We did actually grow.
Yeah.
After
Coincidence?
I think not.
Yeah. Weird. And I think the other thing too, and I think this is a super important thing, and something I brought up to like Kaylin and Will and even Tyler too, but is like, if you would have gone from AT like you're from a perspective standpoint, how different is your perspective of not just the store, but of also the position of manager? How different is it now that you've got to experience and live in it versus if you would have gone AT just a like full-time formulator?
I mean, hugely. To be
Yeah.
able to, like, I think the biggest perspective change, I guess you would say, I have from those two positions and on was ownership. You have to own every single tiny detail of something, knowing that, like, hey, I have Kevin to kind of help me out, watch over me, like same thing with you and Antoine. But in the end of the day, like if something goes wrong, it's on me.
Even if one of your guys is the one that's making them screw up. You know?
Right, absolutely. It's what could I have done better? I didn't prep them well enough. They didn't understand the task well enough, whatever it may be. So to have that perspective, again, invaluable. And I think it'll be something that passes on to the future with Define too.
Yeah.
But in order to learn that, I don't know if there would have been any better way than just to actually do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember telling Kevin one time we were talking about, and Kevin was asking me if I thought you were ready to be manager. And I said, Preston can only continue to learn from here on out by being thrown into the fire that is management.
Yeah.
Like at his AT position, I think he has capped what he can essentially get there. Will he be a perfect manager? Obviously no. But it's one of those where you needed that next trial. You needed the difficulty of becoming a manager to kind of like continue to flourish. You needed the challenge. And so
we couldn't teach you anymore or prep you anymore.
no,
at a
you
certain
just,
point.
and that's it. And you just can't. And then that person, you or whoever it is in the future goes from AT to be manager. And then they go, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I thought this was going to be easy. And then it's never easy. And then you're like, okay. And then everybody's like, all right, let's keep going. Like you figure it out as you go,
Yeah, it's a cool thing I noticed pretty shortly after you left and after I took over managing the store was, in short, the number of phone calls you and I had a week slowly went down in a good way. I remember for the first couple weeks calling you nearly daily to ask for advice or just get confirmation on something or a decision before I'd make it. And to see that slowly go down, I think is what you're talking about.
Yeah,
of like, hey, eventually I just had to be like, I have to learn this on my own.
Right.
If I need help, I have people around me to help me, but there's no better way of learning than doing, especially once you get to that point. I mean, we say the same thing whenever we're training supplement consultants. There's like, hey, we can teach you 85% of everything I'd like for you to know before you step on the floor. The last 15% is not teachable.
Yeah.
You just have to go learn it.
Right. You have to you have to find, in this job for us, especially, you have to find comfort in the uncomfortable. Like that is where you truly learn and where you truly figure this out, where it was like, at some point it's like, well, Preston, it's time to just kind of do it. You know what I mean? And it's tough because everybody obviously hesitates to that. You know what I mean? Like somebody who's never done CrossFit or stepped into a CrossFit gym and then you're like, hey, take this sample tub and go to Coda Norman. You're like, what? You know what I mean? And that's a natural like feeling because you're like, this is totally out of my element, completely not what I normally do. And I don't really know anybody. And it's this whole thing. But then slowly after time, it becomes a great place for you. You know what I mean? Like you get super comfortable with it. You understand it. You meet the people. You realize that it's not a scary place or whatever that is. And it's super interesting. The same thing happens in management. It's like, hey, I know this all seems super overwhelming. And for the first while, you're going to have questions and that's what people are here for. But eventually you're going to just have to do it. You're just going to have to figure it out. You know what I mean? Where 90% of the decisions as a manager have to happen in that moment, not after a phone call, not after a consultation, not after text. It's just kind of like, hey, I got to just do it.
We've gotten a lot of compliments since you've moved into that position as well. It was when I remember the conversation whenever the opportunity to open up a third store came up, it was that evening. So for those that don't know, it was actually a private loan with my sister and her fiance Corey. They're in real estate.
How much was it exactly? I'm
trying to be at least a little low. I hope they're okay with me talking about it. But it was at a time where they were struggling, maybe not struggling, but they needed some places to be able to invest some of the cash flow that they had. We were growing and didn't have the cash flow to support it. And it worked out really well that they made a private loan, which they're obviously benefiting from now. And we got to open up the Yukon location. But it was that first conversation. It was one evening they came over and, just had dinner and we're talking and they proposed the idea. And one of the first conversations that Alyssa and I had was, all right, what does that mean for the team? How do we shuffle people around where this makes sense? And Tom is having a lot of experience with new locations. I think made a lot of sense in having the skill set that he does. It puts him in a very good position to help open up new locations, and even over at this point, really run the whole operation himself from the day that it opens. And we said, who takes over Norman? And Alyssa and I were very confident with saying, we think Preston's ready. We'll double check with Thomas because he's the one working with them on a regular basis. But we feel pretty confident in Preston. And, we had a decent amount of time to do some prep work. You did some very specific management training with Anthony. I think that was a huge help. And then, we just had to kind of, kick you out of the nest and let you fly.
Let the dog off the leash.
Yeah. And, obviously being here as a support group to help out as much as possible. But, and I think there's definitely some things that we expected, hey, there's going to be some things that pop up that we're going to have to help him with. And, he may not know how to handle first try, but, man, you've been managing for what, 6 months or so now?
No, longer
than that, since the beginning of the year, pretty much.
Because you got to think, I left Norman a few months before we opened this.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
He's at like month 9 or 10.
Okay. I was going to say it seems like more than 6 months.
Yeah.
but sitting in the position that we're at today, man, is we've got a ton of confidence, man. You do really well. And a really cool part about that is that's even not necessarily your long-term goal. It's just the role we needed you in at the time, and you fit really well. You were the best person for the job, and you've absolutely crushed it, even though you have different long-term goals, man.
Yeah. Appreciate that for sure. I think a lot of it goes into the conversation you and I, Thomas, have had a number of times in the past couple of years of
when we look like this naked.
Sometimes.
Oh, is it a different conversation?
Yeah. When we're talking about these long-term goals, like 10 plus years, what are the rough steps it takes to get there? And looking at it from that broad perspective of, hey, you can get caught up in the monotony of the day-to-day stuff, but what is it that you're actually working toward? And one thing that I always use as an example with my guys in Norman, or we've talked about it before, of one of my goals, like long-term, was to win this like big powerlifting competition. And I had this idea whenever I was 15, 16 years old. And I wrote down on this big piece of paper on the top, it was to win this competition. And then underneath it, it was 50 different things that I needed to do to be able to get there in a decent order. And the thing at the very bottom, the most base level thing you can get was stretch. It was, hey, I have all of these things. It's kind of overwhelming. There are all these steps to take, nitpicky things I need to do on a daily basis. But that base level task was stretch and eat. Yeah. And I think the same whenever it came to the store and how it's progressed me to this point. It was like, hey, I want to be a formulator for Define. I want us to be the biggest supplement company on the face of the planet. That's still the long-term goal. What does that look like today, though? Was training as a supplement consultant. And then it was making my way to AT and managing and learning these different skills. So as much as we always talk about this big grand scheme, long-term goal, looking at, hey, how do we actually get there and these steps to get there, I think has been super helpful and is in a sense what we're talking about of, hey, progressing to these big things with Define, but doing it through a non-conventional way.
Yeah. Man, that was two things that really stood out to me in your very first interview, and why to me it seemed like you were a very good fit, and we pushed you on to the second and third. Was one, you told me when I asked what your long-term goals were, you said you wanted to formulate supplements. like, well, hey, brother, you can do that here.
Well, guess what?
And two was you talked about your powerlifting goals and about how you had really big goals, but were extremely realistic about them of hey, it may take me 10 years to get here, but it starts with work today to get there. Were two things that really stood out to me of his goal is legitimately like, we can provide that exactly if that's what he's wanting to do. But number two, he's got the patience to get there too, is a big thing.
It's huge. Well, that's the thing. It's like, I can't tell you how many times, working, especially at the hospital, where I had a lot of employees. I know people who listen to most of the podcasts, or even the few people who listen to all of them. I talk about the hospital a lot, and I talk about all the employees that I had. And like, one of the things that was always really tough for me was talking to somebody who just didn't have patience. And I get it. In today's day and age, people talk about changing jobs all the time, and I understand that, and I think that there is value to that in the right circumstance, but you got to understand what you're like moving around jobs for. And I remember this one specific kid, and it'll always be my example probably for the rest of my life, but great kid, worked really hard for us, worked for us for about 6 months, and an opportunity for like a supervisor role came up. And honestly, he finished real close to getting it, but finished like second for it. Right. He just didn't quite make full sense. And so we kind of told him like, hey man, like you were very close to getting this opportunity. Like, we really, it's too bad it didn't work out that way, but we really think that you have a future, and, just keep doing what you're doing. And the next time an opportunity comes up, I just can't guarantee something, but you've got a really good shot at it. And it's like, our transporters made like, I don't know, like $10 an hour or something like that. And he ended up, we had a huge structure. I think that's an important aspect. It was like, we had supervisors, we had managers, we had assistant director, we had director. Like, there's all sorts of these like layers and like career opportunities. And I remember him leaving us right after he didn't get promoted to go to another department that was all base level employees and one manager who had worked there for 22 years. And was like in his 50s, like not necessarily close to retirement,
but definitely settled in.
Right? And he left because they paid $10.50 an hour. So he was going to get a 50-cent raise an hour compared to what we were offering. Our supervisors made $15.50 an hour. So I'm telling him, like, you keep doing what you're doing for 6 months and you'll make $15.50, and you left for a job that has no upward progression at all for 50 cents an hour. And it's like, dude, like, have a little bit of patience. And he's like, no, I've got to just go after who is offering me, I just turned my mic off, who is offering me the most money at the time. And I'm like, dude, I get that, but do you not understand the short-sightedness of this?
Yeah.
Like, around the corner, you are, next up for a supervisor position that will be literally 50% more money than what you're making right now. But you're like, 50 cents an hour, I gotta go follow the money. And I'm like, dude, like, have some patience and some like, in some
5 years from now, what's that look like?
Forecast into the future, or are you leaving that job for another job that's going to pay you 25 cents more an hour or something like that? And don't get me wrong, I get it. Like, if you're in a corporate structure or something like that, and you have opportunities that can increase your salary and benefits and stuff like that, I totally get it. There's a kid making $10 an hour. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's 19 years old. And it's like, dude, just have a little bit of patience, settle your roots in just a little bit. And like, I promise you, this will start to really make sense as a potential long-term option for you. And, like, what can you do? I don't know what he's doing now. I hope him the best, but that is something that when, I always think of when I hear patience involved with like the workplace is you've got to have enough time and enough fuse to just sit and get good at what you're doing and continue to set your roots in, because future opportunities shine at the moment you expect them the least sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's a big part to how we hire in the first place too. Marcus was actually asking us a little bit about that after the podcast, after we stopped recording a couple weeks ago, was asking, about our hiring process a little bit. He was complimenting us on our team quite a bit. And, we talked about, going after people that have a lot of ambition, but don't necessarily have the direction, and, finding those people. And I think I failed to mention was, the standard that we set right off the bat, and the openness that some people, really legitimately aren't for, and some people really are for, is hey, we can't pay you a whole lot now, but the whole idea is to build an enormous company that can pay you a huge salary in the future. And you can be a part of building that and building your career and building your salary.
Right.
Like, we have to put work in to get there, and it's going to take some work from you to be able to get yourself there. But I think being very upfront of that with that, and pretty much all of our interviews, I think is also a very, very important part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the ability to see the big picture, I think, is a skill in its own. It's easy to get caught up in the daily monotonous work, but if you can understand what you're actually working toward, it's worth it for almost everyone.
Yeah.
And something,
if you believe in the company, for sure.
Yeah. And I think it was a conversation, again, you and I had plenty of times when you'd be tired, you worked a 12-hour shift and then all weekend and sample events and whatever else it may be. And you're like, hey, whenever I think of coming to work daily, I don't think of showing up to the floor daily. I think showing up in some big conference room in a headquarters, kicking our feet back, and 15 years from now laughing about how we thought that was bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's I think another thing too that I heard early on. I want to say it was shortly after Chad and Vincent left, and we were still very much in the grind years. Having to sample as much as possible, working crazy hours, still working in the store a ton, like everybody putting in a ton of extra work. Not that we're not grinding right now by any means, but in those years,
I feel it.
Yeah, those years where it was, on surface level, it would be hard for people to be confident that we were going to make it. Is listening to other, it was one successful entrepreneur talking about a group of successful people as a whole, and them, like, the main topic that they talked about amongst themselves was the grind years, the years that they were struggling and getting through it, and it almost as like a fond memory, even though in the time it maybe didn't seem like that. They reminiscing upon it was a lot of fun for them.
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot of perspective of, like, man, these years, it is kind of interesting, man. Like, I do like what I do on a daily basis, like coming in and taking customers and, working with, at the time, it was probably Trace and Alfonso. It was just like, man, like, I feel like I am going to reminisce on this, man. Like, it's like this is probably a little bit more fun than I initially realized.
Oh,
so.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talk about early mornings and late nights. I mean, I thought about that the other day. I was at the store for quite a while. It's like, I'm tired. I've got to work the next day, whatever it may be. And I remember driving home and thinking, like, if this is as bad as it gets, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like, this will be something I'll laugh about in the future of, hey, you remember those long nights, you remember whatever.
You remember when we were doing 6 days a week shifts,
6 to 7 if you had a sample of it.
Yeah, and then so Preston and I we each worked Monday through Friday, and then one of us worked Saturday all day by ourselves, and the other one worked Sunday all by herself. And the problem was our sample events, because of that, always ended up falling on our days off, and so it was like, well, when's your next day off? Oh, I think I'm doing 14 straight. Like, oh, cool. Yeah, me too.
There was at least one time throughout that period of time where both you and I worked at least 20 or more straight.
Yeah, I think we hit like 21 straight or something, because it was during like spring or summer. And it was like, I think it was that first spring, and like events just popped up literally every Saturday. So you'd work like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then your event would be Saturday. And then you'd work Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then Sunday would be your day off. So like, just pray that nothing came up on Sunday. And then we'd both be like, one of us would be on the phone and one of us would be at meeting, and we'd just be sitting there, and you'd wait for the, like, what do we have going on next weekend topic to come up, and you just sit there like staring at the floor like, don't you fucking look at me. Don't look at me. Like,
I didn't realize that was such a stressful topic.
Dude. And then it was like, we've got this Saturday event, who can go? And you're just like, somebody volunteer. I'm 14 straight in already, Daddy. Listen, somebody like, can't go. And Evan go, Thomas, you have Saturday off. What are you doing? nothing. I can go.
Especially during that time too. Something I brought up a lot, especially to newer guys, is like with more opportunities becoming available to take full weekends off and take trips and do whatever. It's like that was not a thing not that long ago.
Not at
like,
all.
and the reason that you and I worked so many Saturday events, because I remember half those events were at Quail or were
we're having
in
to
the
help
city or
out other
whatever,
stores.
is because everyone who worked there was working on Saturday.
Yep.
So granted, it was all hands on deck, and I remember having a couple weekends like that. Again, fortunately, we have a bigger staff now. We don't have to do that all the time, but it wasn't just us, it was everybody.
Oh yeah, everybody was in the thick of it for sure. But yeah, I was just and then I'd be like, oh, I'm working. Okay, who's the one person off at Quail? Okay, Will's off at Quail. He's already got an event. Shit. I'm the only human we have on staff that can go to this event. I'll do it. I'll go. And you're like, oh, it's not a big deal, Thomas. It's just from 8 to 4. And you're like, cool. Yeah. I love that. Love 8 to 4.
Be there at 7:30. It's an hour away.
Yeah. And it ended up going until 6.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm doing great, guys.
I even remember on some of those, like it was a marathon a year or two ago where it was up in the city, and I came up early morning, like before the sun's out, worked that, stayed outside all day, drove to Quail after to cover a shift so that someone else could go to their event.
Right. That was it, dude.
Dude, that used to be a huge issue, man. It was, we would have, you got one event on a weekend. We can do that. 2 events, usually we're fine. 3 events, it is all hands on deck.
Yeah.
Hey, just a heads up. Hey, we got this weekend coming up in 3 weeks, and we've got 3 events. Nobody plan anything.
Yeah. For it is all hand. And then it would be like, also, we got invited to this like sock puppet making class to set up. Like, okay, well, did we get info? Nope. We told them we'd be there. Okie dokie. Okay, I guess I'm going to that then.
Oh yeah.
Good times.
I don't remember that event.
Well, you didn't go. I don't work in the store anymore. But it is funny, like in retrospect, like we even just brought this up at meeting not too long ago because I was being complimentary of our staff of like working with their managers to find times, like if you're going to take off that makes the most sense, and how our structure of the week works, and if you go from this time to this time, it's much easier than this time to this time for the same amount of days or whatever. And yeah, I mean, because of the staff that we have now and because of just the size that we've gone from you and I pulling 21ers all the way to like I've been able to go on like 2 separate trips this summer alone. And it's like that was out of the question. You know what I mean? That was not even you and I. Like I remember both of us, like you'd come up, like you or me coming to each other like tail between our legs, like, hey, so like my family won a trip to like to this super cool place, and like if we show up we also get $5,000. I was just wondering if it was possible that I could maybe make you work like 14 days in a row overtime.
And that was the bummer part, was you understood what you were going to put them through.
You understood what you were truly asking.
Yeah, I mean, even from trips and everything, I remember the first year I took one trip and it was like in the winter and I felt horrible after I was there.
You can't even enjoy the vacation.
But
I remember like my first one, I'm like, okay, well, and even Will here, I remember like explaining that to him one time, like, Will, if you are here and if you are not here, I am here. If I am not here, you are here. That's it. That's all we've got.
That's how it works.
Right.
There was a time when it was Trace and Alfonso, and we were just hiring on Zach to help with some overlap a little bit. But his training bled into January a little bit further than we were expecting. And Trace took a trip like a week before Zach had passed his test, so he wasn't working in store. So it was only me and Alfonso. Oof. And we just got wrecked in January because we didn't have an overlap. Yeah. Dude, it was legitimately is like when you were off shift, you were hanging out at the store.
Yeah.
And we were both there probably 8 hours for a full week.
Yeah.
And like sleeping underneath the desk. And Trace got back and we're like, no more vacations.
Vacation? Screw you. Dude, it's funny. And now we got these weak little whiny babies working here who, I want to go on a vacation. No. You got to work all the hours.
You weren't here for the days when we couldn't go to the
You
dentist.
don't know what it is like back when I was a kid.
We used to work 800 hours a week.
That's right. And we didn't have heat or air conditioning, so it was real hot or real cold. And
Hey, we didn't whenever I first started.
Yeah.
We did part of my training in the dark
Oh,
in
yeah, we
winter with
did.
no heat.
yeah.
That was when we got that big ice storm. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had several days.
This is hilarious. How many times have we as a company been open without heat, without air conditioning, or without power?
Too many times.
Dude,
A
so
lot,
many
like a
times.
lot of times.
Like a conglomerate of like amount of time without one of those three things
Dude,
or
we
multiple.
went November,
Yeah.
December into like middle of January here in Yukon with no heat.
Yeah.
We had 3 space heaters in the back going anytime you were on shift, and you're just huddled around it like a crackhead around a dumpster on fire,
Will was just thriving.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. In his rugby shorts.
laying on the ground, like just soaking in the cold.
Yeah. That's dude, that is always one of the most stressful issues is when you don't have AC, when you don't have heat or you don't have internet.
Dude, it was tough. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'd rather not have heat again. I'd rather not have heat than not have air conditioning because I've been through the no AC in Norman too. That's not fun. And, but dude, when you show up and you're just looking and you're like, I gotta walk in this place and it's cold and it doesn't matter how warm I am now. I'm gonna just be chilled to my bone at some point, just sitting in there, and it's just gonna be brutal. Like, you sit in the back, you could see your breath. Just like,
Dude, that's I
this
think
is rough.
that was the first time Christian's a pretty not overly emotional kind of guy, but dude, I saw him whenever Norman just recently went a few days without AC, and he was pissy.
It
That's a
didn't
good way
help
to put
that
it.
he was working 312s back to back to back.
Yeah,
It happened
Oh.
at the absolute worst time for him. We were out from Sunday through Wednesday,
Oh.
and he worked 9
And
to
it was
9 on
hot.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah. Got up to like 89 in there. You're wringing out your shirt in between customers.
Yeah.
Every time someone walks in, you're like, I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
Right. Oof.
Christian's like, "What's the code? I'm gonna get up on the roof and take care of this."
Yeah. he legitimately did. We were like, hey, our AC guy may be there the next day. And he was like, nope, tell me how to get up there right now. I'm
Yeah.
going to see if I can do anything.
Yeah. How many times have we been on? I've been on that roof so many times.
Oh, yeah.
This is the only roof I've not been on.
I don't think I've been on this roof either.
Well, what the heck are we doing? Let's get on up there.
We could probably do podcasts up there.
Hey.
Right? No.
Uh,
No fun. Boo. Ryan's the no fun dad. Lame. But yeah, just because luckily this store's new, so we don't have to.
the AC
Stuff don't
is
be
also
breaking.
brand new.
Oh,
Yeah,
You just jinxed yourself. You know it.
dude. Luckily,
I'll be out of here.
the warehouse has 2 AC units. So if
So-
we have one go out, we're still hopefully in luck.
Yep.
At least keeping this thing somewhat cool.
And if the AC goes out up there, we'll just a fan and a big long tube. Just feed us some AC.
Dude, desperate times call for desperate measures.
We've done weirder things, unfortunately. Yeah, I learned way too much about AC units whenever the AC went out in Norman.
You know, you do become like a partial handyman whenever
Oh,
things
dude.
go out. You start, doors, the door hinge in Norman, the AC, whatever it may
Mhm.
be, it breaks, and you're like, hey, I'll spend a couple hours trying to fix this before I pay someone to come out and do
Literally,
it.
but how many thousands of dollars have we saved by doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Tons.
Dude,
Yeah.
tons. It's just like a willingness to like figure it out and YouTube and a set of tools. Like, I can't tell you how many things between all 3 locations I've fixed.
Yeah.
I know I kind of am the sometimes the go-to handyman call, but like I have fixed toilets, air conditioners, like
You are pretty handsy.
I can't. Preston just scooted away. But for real, I remember the most fun one was, this is my make fun of Will time.
Get comfortable.
Yeah, this is a good one. So Kaylin also was upset that I don't make fun of her, apparently. So we're apparently going to just need to start making fun of her, which she'll then be like, why'd you make fun of me? You hurt my feelings. Bang, first jab. Like, "Wah, you didn't make fun of me. You did make fun of me. Wah." Whatever.
Tell me you've worked with Kaylin a little bit too long without telling me you've worked with Kaylin.
Literally, that is our exact conversation we had today. I was like, oh, we didn't make fun of you? Wah! If we would have made fun of you, wah! Grow up. But Kevin, being the clumsy little doodle he is, look at that boy, right? Had himself a bathroom break up in the Yukon location. While he was turning around to pull his pants up or whatever, knocked the bottle of poopery off the back of the toilet down into the bowl, him thinking, like the logical scientist he is, that has air in it, thus should be buoyant and will not flush all the way down the hole. He was incorrect. The bottle of poopery got jammed inside the toilet bowl, or like inside the toilet, what would the tube, the drain,
Toilet
whatever.
tube. I think
The
that's
toilet
I think
tube.
that's correct.
I'm kind of a plumber. I have fixed a toilet or two, so I know where the tube meets the bowl. And he was like, well, that went down, so what do we do? You know? And we're like, well, just hope for the best, because we didn't know if it was like clogged or
Can I tell my perspective on that
No,
story
I'm
really
gonna
quick? So it was I was hanging out in the back of the store. This is when we didn't have an overlap, but Yukon was crazy busy. So I was working. I was hanging out in the back of the store most days, taking second things. And this was, keep in mind, after the heat had been turned on, but I was working with Will.
Oh, classic.
So
yeah.
I had to wear 2 jackets. I was there for probably 8 to 10 hours and kept both jackets on the whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm in the bathroom.
Will's walking around temperature is like 102 probably. He's just got a constant fever.
We're worried about it, but he's still alive.
Yeah, he just keeps going.
He's got some ailments.
It will be 68 in the store, and you'll look at him and he will be beet red. I did have to yell at him because he kept wearing pants. And I'm like, I will cut these pants into shorts if you don't buy shorts in the next 3 days. Continue.
So I'm using the facilities, and I guess
He's taking a duper.
trying to keep it professional here. And I realize now that for whatever reason, my routine is to flush as I'm getting up. So I flush and I'm standing up, and the back of my jacket hits the poopery bottle, and it falls into the toilet as it's flushing. So it doesn't even stop. It just falls and goes right in there, like right into the tube. And
The toilet tube.
the toilet tube.
Correct.
And I flushed again, and it seemed to be working fine.
Yeah.
So, we're like, all good. I think.
Yeah.
I
think
think
it just went into the
septic tank.
Yeah, into Narnia.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
And what was it? Will texted the group, and he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "It looked like it got clogged." He's like, "Yeah, I used it later, and I think it ended up getting clogged."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, it was just with pee."
You're telling my
clogged.
story now.
I'm sorry.
Ruining
Go
the
ahead, go ahead.
punchline.
Go ahead.
So Will decides the next day, Will calls me and he's like, dude, the toilet is clogged and I can't get it. What do I do? And I'm like, you see that? I was like, well, you see the plunger there? And he's like, yeah, I got it in my hand. I said, well, you keep doing it until something happens. He's like, yeah, but I've been doing it for a while. And I said, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing it. Like, I don't know what you want me to tell you. And so I talked to him and I go, hey, like, did this work last night? And he was like, no, it like clogged up last night when I went to the bathroom. And I was like, oh, because he had done a number 2 in the morning, right? And what Kevin was saying was the night before he just peed and it wouldn't flush. So he then decides the good idea to poop in it the next day. I'm like, he was like, yeah, it was clogged. And I was like, oh, you pooped in it last night? And he was like, no, I just peed. And I'm like, what?
So logically, you should keep using it.
Yeah, logically, yeah, okay. Just liquid, like it won't go down. Oh, then we're screwed. No, it'll be totally fine.
I can poop in this.
I
now.
can poop in this tomorrow morning.
He just had to do the miraculous poop but no pee because he thought the pee'd get
That
clogged.
would be the problem.
Yeah.
The pee gets clogged. That's what's keeping it. And so, yeah, I was like, well, we got 2 options. If we can't suck it out, you got to push it in. So went and got us at Auger, and and then Will has the audacity, right, to because we're both plunging it before I get the auger, right? And I go in there, and he's all like, and I'm like, Will, this is literally your shit. I'm in here plunging this too, and it is not even mine. And at one point, he like plunged it and got a little spray back, right? And at this point, this has just been turned into soup, right? Sorry, everybody eating who listens to our podcast at dinner. And it like sprays back, and he's like, I can't. And I'm like, so you want me to do this after you pooped on a toilet that wouldn't flush pee? You think that this should be my responsibility now to go in here and plunge because you got a little. It missed it on me. And I'm like, I don't care if it splashes you in the face. Get in there. And then and he was like, and then I went and got an auger, and we got that sucker pushed down in there.
So you live and you learn from other people's experiences. So whenever we had a similar thing happen in Norman, it was Hosse's issue.
Oh, dude, Hosse took one for the team.
He sure did. Through a couple of different methods, some of which I don't feel like people should hear if they're potentially eating. But
yeah, put down your food now.
Yeah.
Or pause this.
You thought us talking about prison last time got intense.
The safer way, the safer thing that we did was we have the big black trash bags for the trash cans in Norman, and we just cut out a headpiece and put it over him, and we made puchos. Yeah, we called it his poop suit.
Yeah.
So he like had some like taped over his arms. We had like
Classic.
strapped the one to his chest, and then he went to town and tried to get it unpledged.
Like hand in there, right?
Yeah, that was the.
I've been there.
I feel like that was the first thing he did. And granted, this was early off.
And this is his own mess, though. Right?
Correct.
That helps.
Yeah.
I'd rather be doing it on mine than anybody else.
Yeah, we'll help if someone else gets something clogged, but it's if you clog it, you unclog it.
Yeah.
And he had like
If
I wasn't
the clogger, you're the auger. You know.
Yeah. He again early off in him starting to work at Norman, so I think that's something to it of like didn't want to break anything, felt bad. And I heard this story days after it had happened. And he had apparently, whenever he had initially clogged it, he had tried to plunge it a couple times and nothing had really happened. So his brain went to, well, if the plunger can't get it out, maybe I can with my hand. And this is, again, a little soupy. And he doesn't, again, I wasn't there for this part. This is from his telling, so it may have been even worse, but didn't even take a trash bag around his arm, took like the paper towels and wrapped them around his arm. Something that is obviously going to break down the second it hits water.
And just hold it on you then.
Yep. And just held it like in his fist and tried to keep it on his forearm.
Yeah, I'd rather have nothing on my hands, I think.
Yeah. Goes down, just starts fishing for it, can't see anything, like gets his hand all the way down there. And I just remember hearing like days later, I'm talking to him and he's still scratching his arm. And he was like, dude, it's unbelievably itchy. And I'm like, that's the grossest thing you could have possibly done. I was like, I would want you to do 10 other things before you try that again.
Yeah.
The worst part was it didn't work.
Yeah, it was all for nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, like when I was working at Boogie, cleaning the women's bathroom, I can't tell you how many times you just had to look at that thing and go get a trash bag and put it over your arm like a makeshift glove and just start pulling out what you could. Oh, dude, every night. It was, dude, brutal. For you at home who thought this was going to be about formulations, no, it's about poop stories. You fools! You thought this was going to be about science? No.
So this is about to have a baby.
That's a sick segue.
We're doing all the videos and learning, and we're in the diaper changing section right now.
Oh, yeah.
How you feeling?
I feel like I'm going to acclimate easier because when I walk the dogs, our dogs legitimately will poop anywhere between 2 and like 6 times
Yeah, same.
In one walk?
in one walk.
Goodness.
Dude, same thing
They
with
save
Laurel.
us.
That's
Dude.
crazy. Can't take her anyway.
Dude, Stella saves them up. Dude, she will hold like she's like, "We're not going to walk today. Well, I'll save them for tomorrow." She
Well,
likes.
it's like, not gonna spoil my dinner. No, same for tomorrow.
So yeah, so I'm used to handling poop at least with my hand in a bag. So
Yeah,
like that was an adjustment. So
Sure.
we'll adjust into it.
yeah. I think like your own child, all those kind of things. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have kids, but I feel like it like, makes it better. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather be picking up my dog's poop than someone else's dog's poop.
That's true. Yeah, other dogs' poop kind of grosses me out.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, like I would pick up Stanley or Stella's or Preston's. Like I think those are the 3 dogs I'm used to the most.
You have a couple times.
Yeah,
Dude, it is weird.
Like, you make a man. He's okay.
Stella will not to keep this on poop for too much longer.
Going for a minute now.
Dude, Stella will. She's got this thing where she likes to poop on other dogs' poop,
Yeah,
and it like weirds me out. I'm like, I'll pick up yours, but I'm gonna
so you leave the other one
I think I have.
if
before.
it's a stack.
Yeah, if it's a stack.
Interesting.
I have picked. I think I have picked it up before when she just like covers it, but I know I have left it. I
That's
typically
hilarious.
leave it.
That's
I don't touch that.
hilarious.
It's another dog's.
I don't know, but you're already there.
Yeah.
You're a bad Samaritan.
For not picking up other dogs' poop.
When your dog poops on top of it, your hand is already grabbing poop in that exact spot.
It looks the same way when I got there.
Ryan, we need an opinion on this. Would you pick up somebody else's dog's poop if your dog pooped on it?
No.
Wow.
There we go, Ryan.
That doesn't surprise me.
They
You
should have
seem
picked
like
up
a
their
bad
dog.
Samaritan.
They should have picked up their dog's poop in the first place.
That's fair. I
Right,
mean, that's a fair
right.
call. That's a fair call. You're already there. That's like you drop a bottle like out of your car and it lands on another bottle that's in the street. You don't pick up both. You
I
just
don't-
lead the litter.
I don't think so. This is feces.
Yeah. I pick up the
Don't tell
bottle.
the hole in my argument. Had a perfect analogy until you ruined it.
All right. This further scenario. There's poop in the bottle.
You drop your poop bottle, it lands on someone else's poop bottle. You can't just leave it. Oh God, we lost our only listener. AJ, come back.
I bet AJ would pick up both the poops.
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
Totally. He would.
Yeah.
They both. Good Samaritan. I don't know.
Yeah. AJ's a professional dog sitter, though.
Right.
So probably a little more used to it than I am.
Okay, we're going to change the subject, but it is equally not about business. So, I've been asking people this question. And I think it's really funny. So, there's going to be some stipulations for you guys because of your situations. So, you have to trade bodies with somebody on staff, right? You become them for whatever extended period of time. But that person also becomes you for that period of time, right? And neither of you can select your significant other because you both have the unique situation of having a significant other that also works here. Who would you trade bodies with? Ryan, I want your answer also.
Noah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
good answer.
I wanted to
just
take him real
bodies,
quick
right?
before anyone else did.
Yeah. I think we can have overlaps. I don't care. You just got to keep in mind.
Just bodies, like not brain, not activities, not
Yeah,
hobbies,
no, like
just
thank God you don't have to live in Tyler's brain or anything. Like if you choose him, but
How long of a period of time?
who cares? Let's do long enough that you have to go to the bathroom multiple times. So we'll say
like a day?
let's say 3 days.
3 days? Okay.
Yeah. 3 days. So like, yeah,
Do I take over their responsibilities and they take over my responsibilities?
I didn't think that far into it.
That's a big one.
You're just like, God, whatever makes me not the delivery boy. You're like, I don't care who has to fondle my body to go pee. Just whoever takes over my deliveries.
if it's just bodies, again, like not tasks or anything like that.
Yeah, not tasks.
Yeah.
You live most of your current life, but you have to go. Yeah. You don't have to do their job. They do, or they do your job. You keep your job.
I think my answer would be Will. for a number of reasons. Will's definitely one of the strongest dudes I know, and I think it'd be cool to be able to experience that in the gym before I can get there myself.
Sure.
Second of all, I'd like to see how it is just to function in that large of a body. How does it feel to walk up the stairs? Do I pass out when I get to the top?
Why
I've
am
heard
I
all these
so
stories.
dizzy?
Yeah.
Put lotion in between your legs so they don't chafe.
Yeah.
Important.
Yeah.
Will. But this is the other thing. How comfortable do you feel with Will being in your body?
Mm.
It may come back a little broken,
Yeah.
but I think it'd be worth it.
You not to turn the topic back to going to the bathroom, but you got to keep in mind you're taking over Will's body, which is like taking over Alex's body, which means the bathroom every 15 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be something to get used to, but I'm not going to say I have the best habits right now anyway. So
yeah.
going from bad to just a
Trade
little
bodies
worse.
with Kaylin and you never go to the bathroom.
There you go.
Boom, jab number 2.
I feel like you're looking at this the right way. Like it's an experience. Like, when would you be offered this opportunity again?
Yeah.
This could get my answer could get really weird really quick.
It's going to be weird no matter what because I'm going to make it weird, but
I may have a alteration to my answer. If I had to pick someone else, it may be you,
ooh,
Thomas.
yeah, it would.
Because I've been this tall most of my life.
So this is funny because my person also got asked this question and we mutually chose each other.
Really?
And we're like, oh, this is perfect. My person was Alyssa. And Alyssa said me as well because she wanted to be tall. And I said I wanted to kiss Kevin. So I was like, this is a win-win.
And she was like, you can kiss him now if you want.
I was about to ask you. You say this like you don't regularly.
No, he's got 2, and he hasn't used either. He wants to see what it's like to have unlimited for a day.
That's right.
Give me this.
And then she's like,
Yeah, then I get to be tall. It'd be so cool.
So would I know that you're in Alyssa's body?
absolutely not. So I'm glad that we've had like a mutual, like, she saw the benefit, I saw the benefit kind of deal, because again, I think some people I've asked this question to were not prepared for the fact that like, not only are you going to be in their body, they're going to be in your body. So, you got to be careful,
Yeah.
You got some people on staff liking some questionable things on Instagram sometimes. I don't know if I want them to have the keys to this car.
That's a good point.
Wait, I may change my answer about Will then.
Yeah, nobody picks Anthony.
Was he asking to be made fun of too?
Nope.
Yeah, that's a big part. Who do you trust? Who do you trust to take over?
That's right. I trust Alyssa.
Yeah.
She'd just be like, all of these shirts are too tight. Why don't they be bigger ones?
You'd be like, I get it. Thank you. And then I would be able to wear anything and be like, look at this massive hoodie on me. How fun. Clothes that are too big would be so cool.
You could also experience what it's like to be pregnant for a little bit.
Exactly.
That's true.
Get what all the hype is about.
Is there hype?
Oh. People do it a lot.
That's true.
Yeah. What was yours?
Dude, this is
a loaded question.
This is something.
You sticking with Will?
I'd stick with Will.
That's a good one.
Final answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You at home, right in the comments. Who would you switch bodies with on staff?
This is tough. You don't switch responsibilities.
Nope.
Dude, I think I'd have to go. I think I'd have to go with Ian. He's a very, very respectful, very, very responsible kind of guy. Yeah, I think
You're saying responsible with the keys to your
Right.
to your ride.
right.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Nice. And then he said, Noah. Yeah.
Noah.
Yeah. Sorry, anybody who didn't get picked. tough luck.
I knew when you asked this question, we're going to hurt some feelings.
Yeah. Tyler's like, what the heck? Dang it. All right. Now, question. The next question, follow up. Now, you just switch brains with somebody on staff.
Oh, this is way different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're switching brains. And so, obviously, like, I mean, just like their thought process, like you just live in their brain.
I'm going to be very confident with this one. I'm going to go with Tyler for the experience.
Oh, dude. I don't know if you come back from that.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I'd probably need therapy
It's
after.
like a real bad trip.
Yeah, kind of like for the same reason people do drugs.
Yeah, right.
It's your
You just go in
drug,
there and it's just
Tyler's
like,
brain.
what is that? John Cena.
It's just constantly
just over and over and over. There's strobe lights. There's like just memes and videos and things popping up. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It would be an experience.
Switch brains with someone. That's hard.
Yeah.
Tyler would be an interesting one.
Yeah, I kinda wanna do Tyler now,
Kinda
too.
behind
Kinda sounded
that.
fun.
Yeah. I think out of everyone's, his would be the most like entertaining to live
Yeah.
in for a day.
Mm.
A
You
day
come back
that-
and you're like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd probably be Tyler again for the
Yeah.
experience.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I think out of everyone who we know who has like at a core level very similar like ways that you go about life, ways that you do things, but at the same time they have like this
Mm-hmm.
other part of their brain that you see sometimes, and his is the most fascinating in my opinion.
The other day we were stocking Core Pros and I had just walked past it and saw that we needed some chocolate out there and knew we just got some chocolate. And so I was like, hey, how many chocolate Core Pros do we need out there? And he goes, 0. And I go, I just walked past it. There were some missing. And he goes, oh, I thought you meant chocolate peanut butter. And I was like, no, I would have said chocolate peanut butter. Like that would have been like a definite like differentiating thing. And he was like, oh, yeah. We need 2. And I was like, how many pistachio do we need? Pistachio ice cream. So I'm going to get confused with the other ones. Will thought that was really funny. Will was a big fan of that one. Bro, the ice cream one, dude. Oh,
Dude, Tyler's getting across the board picks on this round now.
well, hold on.
Oh, yeah, we need Ryan.
I'm going to Alyssa because nothing's changing there.
Just the same. It's just so
It's
this is,
just another brain.
yeah, it's the
Yeah.
same. It's just the same thing.
Ryan wants no experiences.
Nope.
You guys are the fucking same.
Yes,
And I realize that even more, especially working with you guys multiple days a week here at the warehouse.
Mhm.
Like you two get on the same page sometimes where you're both being productive and like generally in a good mood, but you both get snarky and you're both on the same page.
Snarky's a really good word for it.
Yeah, dude. If they get on the same snarky page together,
Ooh,
this ain't a fun place to be.
Watch out! Don't want to swim with those snarks.
Ryan's over there just shaking his head.
turn into Trace and just fucking hate it here.
Yeah.
He did last Friday.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I like it when Ryan comes up to the store because I think it makes Tyler nervous. It definitely makes Kaylin nervous when there's videos and stuff to be shot.
Mm. Yeah, UConn's kind of the go-to store right now.
It's definitely
Just a hop and a skip.
It's the most convenient, that's for sure.
Yeah. He's like, ideal? Yeah. Convenient? Yes. Oh.
Dude, I feel like Tyler's a good pick too because he's just one of those people that just genuinely likes everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Like I feel like
He's just vibing, having a good time.
yeah, it would be fun. Like yeah, again for the experience, like you're tripping, but also like it's a good trip.
Yeah.
Well, he's also one of the most positive people I know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Dude's always in a good mood. Every single time I see him, he's the first to be like, "Hey, what's up? How's it going?"
Yeah.
he's all over it.
yeah,
Mm.
super positive guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it would be tough, like anytime somebody was like talking about something important, because your brain would just be like memes, memes.
For some reason, whenever I imagine Tyler's brain, I also imagine everything is like subtitled. So he's like trying to read his thoughts as things happen.
That's why he always.
That's a good Tyler impression.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, he's like, I'm trying to read my thoughts right now, Thomas.
He does have that fucking look on his face when you ask him something. Like he is trying to read something in his head.
Good kid, though. Good kid.
We like Tyler a lot. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Any more hypotheticals?
That's about as good as I got so far.
Yeah.
I have introduced a series of challenges at UConn. One has been and it'll be, the questions are before you guys ask if you get curious. They're too long to get into, but I have been providing. I did Kaylin today, and we'll get Will and Tyler, but it's a 3-question IQ test to see how well they score. I scored 3 out of 3.
But you made the test.
I didn't make the test. I got the test from TikTok, and I genuinely did score 3 out of 3.
Nice.
So, Kaylin scored 0 out of 3. So we'll see Will and Tyler. And I said whoever scores the highest immediately takes over as manager of UConn. So luckily I'm in the lead right now. But Laurel only she called, and while we were in the middle of it, and we asked her the question, and she went 1 for 1. So Laurel's Kaylin's boss now. So
I'm down.
Yeah, no, she accepted it.
Congrats, Laurel.
Yeah. Way to go, baby. Yeah. So yeah, no, but the questions are pretty long, but yeah, nobody's super stressed out about it or anything. Like just kidding. Caitlin's super stressed out about it.
Job number 3.
No, she took it in stride. But it is funny. It's a lot of just like those weird questions. I'll ask one, and then we'll move on from it. The question, and I'll answer it quick if you guys don't get it. But the question is like, you're buying a baseball and a baseball bat. The total cost of the 2 items is $1.10 for both of them. The bat is exactly $1 more expensive than the ball. How much is the ball? $1.10 total. Bat is exactly $1 more than the ball.
How much is the ball?
How much does the ball cost?
10 cents?
Mm-mm.
A nickel.
It's 5 cents.
Oh.
10 cents. If it's $1 more, that would be $1.10, which would mean it would equal $1.20. So
right.
it's the bat is $1.05 and the ball is 5 cents.
I took a pretty quick guess at it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't say anything.
Same.
So I was also thinking 10. I was like, I don't want to sound stupid.
Yeah. I was like, I could take like several minutes to think through this,
Right.
but like I'm like, I'm just gonna go with my gut.
And it's kind of like it's like a weird, like kind of the way it's framed.
Yeah.
Ryan's like, fucking give me the other 2. I'm ready.
I want to see if I have a chance at Norman or UConn manager.
The other ones, unfortunately, are a little bit longer. So we'll save the rest.
Save it for another time.
Yeah. We'll get it another time. But yeah, so congratulations, Ryan. You're now also Kaylin's boss.
This is why I'm the delivery guy now.
That's right. Yeah. Ooh, yes, sir, Kev.
Maybe if I get the other 2 right, you guys will promote me.
This is how we do things around here.
Also, it is true. Ethan actually got fired earlier today because Noah made a really good basketball shot.
Oh, dang. Dude.
yeah.
If I had a nickel, lost a lot of good men that way.
Man, one really cool thing to kind of dive back into Preston here a little bit.
Oh yeah, hey.
Yes. Man, I think one thing that we don't take for granted here is that, like we talked about before, is you're obviously killing it as a manager. You guys are killing it down in Norman, have an awesome team. Man, one big side note to that is man, a big sign there is that you have a lot of guys coming in, stopping in the store when they're off shift. Man, that's always a really good sign that you've got a good culture at your store. But I think we know you're in a position that you don't necessarily isn't your long-term goal. Like you're happy where you're at, but you have long-term goals otherwise, obviously within Define and Formulations. And I think you've got a really good head for that of formulating isn't necessarily something that will be a 40-hour-a-week job potentially ever, and it would be pretty monotonous if it was. Like I don't know that even necessarily you would want to do that.
No, oh no.
So it'll definitely have to be kind of a supplementary job or responsibility amongst at least one other thing, if not multiple other things. And it would make a lot of sense to be involved with more stuff on Define. And man, we've really put a lot of effort to get you more involved on Define stuff. So I think that is something that could be also underrated is that you're not just doing well as a manager, but you're also taking on a lot of responsibilities beyond that. A big one has been communication with Bruce. We're getting to the point where I'm not even having to guide you much on placing orders and working with Bruce. And my communication is slowly getting smaller and smaller with him. We are a recent one is we just passed you responsibility of labels because I'm reading a book right now that says I shouldn't be doing things that I don't enjoy doing, and so
I should read that book.
So I'm passing things along. Graphic design is genuinely something that I do enjoy, but it is stressful to be able to dedicate that amount of time. Like if I had all the time in the world, like if my work week was 20 hours a week, I'd be happy to do. Like I do genuinely. That's what I was going to school for. I enjoy the artwork of it. But we started passing you, some test labels to mess around with the programs and Adobe Illustrator primarily. And we actually gave you a label. We're bumping, slightly tweaking the supplement facts on one of the products, and for a reorder coming up. And I just got to look over that earlier today, and you did a phenomenal job with it. There were some mistakes that honestly I probably set you up for failure with because it didn't let you know, hey, these, X, Y, and Z needs to be changed, but you did an awesome job with it. I was able to make just minor notes on a printed out version of it, and give that to you. So taking on that responsibility. But you're taking on more and more, man. And I think you understand as well as anybody, man, if we want to get to the point where you are more full-time Define, if that's the goal, we need to slowly pass you on more responsibilities. And I think you've done well with, you don't necessarily run with every single one of them. Like we passed you wholesale and
No thanks.
Yeah.
Both of us, yeah.
Yeah, and it seemed like maybe that wasn't necessarily the ticket, and then then we tried out Ian with it, and he's just ran with it. So he seems like maybe someone that responsibility fits him a lot more, where something like labels fits you a whole lot more, man. And the responsibilities that you do enjoy, you are actually like really putting a lot of effort into making sure that they become your responsibility. So when we get to a point where we've got, a dozen labels between remakes and new products to make, which has happened before, it was legitimately like a dozen of them, and it's going to be a total of like 120 hours put in. It's a lot easier decision of, when that happened in the past, it was, I'm the only one that knows how to fully do this. I've just got to find the time. And it sucked.
Sure.
I legitimately I would go home at nights and work late into the evening, like hanging out at home. I was on my laptop working on labels like constantly. And we got it done, and it was somewhat enjoyable, but I also didn't sleep much. I literally didn't get time where I wasn't working. So to be able to, if we get to that point again, it becomes a whole lot easier if we've got trust in you to be able to make those labels, to be able to say, hey, if we've got the cash flow, if we can afford to bump Preston over, and we've got the people to step in place and take over his roles, it's a whole lot easier decision to free up your time so that you can dedicate to those sorts of things, and then I don't have to worry about tacking that onto my 80-hour work week already. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that we've mentioned dozens of times before whenever it comes to me progressing to Define, is it's not like I just manage, get really good at managing, do all the nitty gritty for that, and then poof, I'm full-time Define. It's slowly taking on more and more Define responsibilities to the point where I have what could be 40 hours of defined work a week to be doing that are my current responsibilities. And then whoever is next up in line for management is prepared well enough and whatever it may be. And then it's more of an obvious change of like, hey, I can switch over to full-time define and already have a full plate my first week there.
Right.
Mhm.
Instead of, oh, hey, we have 20 hours of formulating for you to do a week and find something else to do with the other 20 hours. So
Right.
I think through my experience with wholesale and labels and formulas and everything else that I've kind of dabbled in, I think it's important to experience all of them. I'm trying to get to the point where there's not many things through Define or Triad that I haven't done at some point previously.
Mhm.
It A, makes you gain a respect for the people that do it, and it B, tells you more about what you like and what you're good at. And I think
Mhm.
wholesale was a good example of that.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever I was like, hey, is there anything more that we can do? We started introducing the idea of us picking up wholesale and started kind of going down that rabbit hole. And I was like, ooh, this is a different beast. And as much as I think lots of people can do it and be successful at it, I think it does take someone more specifically like Ian to go out and crush that and do it very
Mhm.
quickly. And for someone like myself, it may have been labels of something that I can pick up and start crushing this more than I could wholesale. I
Yep.
wouldn't have figured that out though, unless I would have tried those other things.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's it. Opportunities sound great until they're not the ones you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that sometimes. Is like opportunities are great, and then sometimes you get them, and you're like, oh, wait.
Even if they
Hold
look like
on.
there's something that you want to do, and maybe it's just
1000%.
because it is an opportunity in general, but
Yeah.
you get into it and you realize you don't like it as much as you thought.
Oh yeah, I think that happens pretty frequently. But yeah, I think it's a unique thing because we even have kind of the similar conversations with my long-term future goals, where it's like, hey, and mine's on the triad side of things, where it's like, hey, this isn't going to be necessarily like 40 hours a week. So what else are we doing? And it's like trying to find responsibilities and things that make sense, where it's like, you start to tack them all on. And the fun part is doing that all while also managing the store.
Yeah.
And so it is cool though. I think, we definitely do a good job of getting the most out of people, because when you first took over as manager, you couldn't have imagined doing that plus everything else. You know
Oh,
what I
no.
mean? And then eventually you get to a point where, you have enough systems in place and the right people and the right experience, and then you have the time, and things start opening up, and you start getting better with your time and better at your job. And then you have more opportunities, you can streamline more of these to open up more opportunities over here. And it's really interesting because I do think people who, and we don't have anybody like this, but people who have the mindset of like, oh, I can't wait to give this up so that I can, do something different. And it's like, well, that's not really how it works. Like,
Right.
you might be able to try something for a while and kind of give a swing at it like we did with, wholesale. But like that, again, that or being any of the times that I've ever had to like help her on the social media, like, no thanks.
Can't imagine doing that plus actually working on the floor or doing
Oh,
anything else.
Yeah.
And I think it was one of the biggest misconceptions that people had whenever I had started to kind of prep into the management position. And then whenever I'd officially taken over was whenever I'd tell people what's going on with work in my life, they'd be like, oh, cool. Like, you're going to get more time off. You're going to get like a better schedule. You're going to do whatever. I was like, oh, my life's about to get so much harder.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
you don't even know.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it turns into
And I think a big part of that too is as you progress, our big factor into continuing to be able to move on is what Thomas mentioned, the people underneath you is as you continue to take on more defined responsibilities, because it seems like we're passing you a new one every week, is the people that are working at Norman with you are also chomping at the bit to be able to take on responsibilities and take on more of a role and a leadership role at the company. And you have the option as they grow and become more responsible to pass some of your responsibilities off to them.
Yeah, and it's a blessing to have a team that works as hard as mine does. And shout out to all of them down there, because I always tell them, but they make my life and my job so easy. If I was having to pull teeth to try to get someone to pick up a task that was originally mine, or to schedule something so that I don't have to, I think it'd be a different story. But because I have 3 dudes who are just as hungry as the next guy, and they all have their own goals and aspirations and things that we're constantly trying to get them to progress further along the path to, it makes my job on that end a lot easier. I pick up a defined responsibility and I try to pass off one of my managerial duties. And as long as I can keep that balance of trying to do my best within being in management, being in the store, and still be 100% present while also pursuing and taking on as many things as I can for Define while I pass off some of those responsibilities. From the beginning, I think that's what we've said, like, hey, that's how I get to full-time Define. That's how I get to that end goal.
Right. That is a big so I'm reading that book that I'm reading right now actually comes recommended from Andrew Aguero because every time I see him I tell him how much I'm working and he's like, bro, you need to read this book about
I love that man.
We all do. He's a very lovable guy.
He is. He's the best.
But the book is Buy Back Your Time. It's a pretty solid book. I haven't read a ton of it so far, but the big thing was that they've talked about so far that's like really stuck with me is hire to take your responsibilities as opposed to growing the company, because the most finite thing in the company is the owners and the leaders' time. And if you can hire for things that take away that time, you can spend your time on things that, number one, you enjoy more, and the things that you enjoy more are the things that you're going to be better at and provide more of a benefit for the company. There's like legitimate studies on the people doing the things that they enjoy tend to be like X amount of times better at it.
Right.
And it's cool because I think that principle can apply to legitimately everybody within the company as you get into more of your niche area and do the things that you like that not a lot of other people like. You can pass along the general responsibilities that most other people can do.
Well, it's super unique because like there are things that you do, there are things that I do, and there are things that you do that are definitely not our favorite things that somebody on staff would take in half a second.
Yeah, and because it would be more enjoyable than the things they're doing now. So it's this whole cycle. Like it applies to literally everybody.
Right. And they're just excited about it. It's a new thing. Well, like whatever that looks like. It's
true.
It's very interesting though, because it's like, why not give it to that person who wants it when you don't? That'll free you more time to do things that you can be better with, and then everything gets better.
Right. And if you can get it to the point where do give it to someone that has more free time, they've got more time to really do it well. Like that's another thing I think I've really learned is I enjoy it a whole lot more if I've got more time to do it well.
Sure. Yeah, instead of feeling like you just throw it together.
Yeah.
But and then they're excited about it. It's a new opportunity for them. They're going to take it more seriously, where it's like if it becomes the most dreaded part of your week, well, like then I think that's an easy spot for the like productivity of it to really start to fall. When it's like, this is the thing I dread most all week long. When it's like, ugh. Or I can spend more time doing these other things that I'm better at because I enjoy them more and hand that off. And it's not just like dumping bad stuff. Like legitimately, there are things like I know you're not a fan of delivering the transfers, right?
Not a ton.
Right. I would do that tomorrow. I would take that from you tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's funny because it's not only what it is, but it's also what it means sometimes too, where it's like, you obviously not a huge, like, I know you hesitate to say it, but I think if you had the ability to hand it off to me tomorrow, you probably would.
100%.
Yeah. So it's a situation like that where it also, even though it might not be my favorite thing that I'm doing, it is also a progression towards the thing that I want. And so that makes me want it and like it, because then it's not just always it's what it represents. I don't like doing the schedule, but it represents me being the manager.
Yeah. And I think it does, like the benefits of it, or like kind of like the nice parts about it is it gives you a reason to stop by different stores, see different people, hang out, like. Right. But for me, when I'm getting constant emails, constant texts, and constantly more things I need to be doing, it's stressful when I'm at the store when I'm like, man, I should be alone working on some stuff.
Right, exactly. Where I could get more out of it.
Right, exactly.
From not just from personally, but from like everybody. Yeah,
like today was a really interesting one when I was in Norman. Preston actually wasn't working. He's usually there on Mondays, and I check in with him on Mondays when I'm there. But was doing the podcast tonight, so wasn't there earlier today. And I had less to do. I think I got a little bit of an earlier start, was just ahead on the day. So I was in Norman a little bit earlier with not really anything to do while I was there, and had a couple hours. So I legitimately got to hang out with Christian and Alex while I was there. And it was a weirdly more enjoyable experience because I got to just hang out and not just like, okay, I've got to get, like, I'm here and I've got to leave in an hour and a half, and I've got this and this to do. We've got to make sure we stay on track. Like,
you can tell when you'll be delivering something and we can start to hear you sigh. That's when we're like, okay, let's wrap it up around here. Kevin's just kind of
You
Just a
see
second.
the to-do list growing longer and longer.
And then we go, okay, that's not cute. Shut up.
That's funny. More people notice that. Like, I don't notice that I do that, but I guess you guys notice it. And Stanley, our dog, notices it as well.
Yep.
Dude, he gets stressed if I sigh. And I do it like a subconscious, like I do it without noticing it.
Oh.
Like I'll be at home and I'll sigh and he gets up and gets real nervous and like looks at me.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's like Will doesn't know he snores when he's awake. But I notice it because I'm worried about his long-term health.
So obviously, we've talked a lot about Preston, your long-term goals, where you started, where you're at now. What would you think if in that first interview that we had, where you told me you wanted to formulate supplements, your long-term goal as a career was to formulate supplements. If I were to tell you in, gosh, how long have you been here? 3 years? Not quite.
Almost 3.
Almost 3 years. If I were to tell you in 3 years from now, you're going to be managing one of the stores and formulating all our products and have other defined responsibilities on top of that, what do you think you would have thought?
I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have believed it. One of the cool things about the start of my career here was that I didn't know what it entailed. I mean, I thought, hey, formulating supplements would be cool. Working at a supplement store would be cool. But to be honest, I hadn't even, the thought hadn't crossed my mind that it's retail, that I'm going to be talking to people.
Yeah.
And from how introverted I was at the time, I'm kind of glad that I didn't think too much about that. It may have changed my mind. But everything that's happened since then has been incredible to experience and to progress through, but I never would have imagined it. Whenever I was 15 years old and first had the idea of like, hey, supplements are kind of cool, started to get a little bit more nerdy into that. I was like, that would be a cool career path. And I have absolutely zero clue how to get there. Like, you just have to start somewhere, like reach out to someone. And I remember reaching out to Fawns like a year before I'd gotten hired on or had an interview, and just kept trying. And it's cool what it's led to. I'm looking forward to and highly anxious for the next 3 years and the next 5 and the next 10, because one thing I always preach is, hey, life never goes the way that you think it's going to. Your plans never go the way that you think they're going to. It's frequently better, though. And I think that's what the past 3 years have been for me. Nothing that I could have ever imagined or expected, but I wouldn't change it any way.
Yeah.
Dude, I've got a really cool story about Alfonso that I don't know if you've ever heard or not. But when we were looking at hiring people to replace some hours at Quail Springs as we were opening up Norman, but we were also going to need to hire part-time in Norman as well. And your name got brought up. I want to say maybe by Anthony as a potential for working Quail Springs, and Alfonso was like, nope, he's mine when we move to Norman. Like, he's going to be my guy.
No, that's cool for sure. I've heard something similar. And I think just not even whenever I'd got hired on, but kind of what had taken place before that, like me becoming really good friends with Anthony, starting to become more knowledgeable of TRIAD and Define and what it looked like in the first place. It's cool to hear a couple of years later that people were saying that about me before I had worked there, but again, nothing that I would have expected. I think a story that some people know that grows more interesting as time goes on is like, for the most part, whenever Norman had opened up, these positions were beginning to come available for TRIAD. I wasn't supposed to live in Oklahoma.
Oh yeah,
I think you remember that.
Yeah.
But that was at a strange point in my life. Like, I was in school, but not super certain about it. I had some stuff happen. I was like, I just want to get out. I've been in Oklahoma my whole life. I want to move, go to school somewhere else, start anew. And I think the plan at the time was, I was looking at a couple places, but Nashville, where my sister lives. And to the point where I'd remember telling people like Anthony and Alfonso, like, hey, I think I'm going to move to Nashville once.
And that was the
semester's
first thing
over.
Anthony said about you. I remember when that conversation came up, he was like, oh, I think Preston would be great, but I think he's moving to Nashville.
Yeah. And other people were convinced. I was pretty convinced. I was like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen. I'd like to get out.
We interviewed a couple of the people when we did finally start interviewing for Norman. We interviewed a couple of the people because we were under the assumption that you were moving away.
Yeah. And it's let's say a silver lining for lack of a better term. But like at that point in my life, there was a ton going on, so much uncertainty. I was 19 years old whenever I got hired,
Jeez.
and like hated school. Life was hectic. All of this like bad stuff was going on. There was so much uncertainty, and I was like, I think I should stay here and ride it out for a little bit longer. And luckily, I did. Ended up getting the opportunity to work at TRIAD, and the rest is history. But it is cool to look back on that and be like, hey, there were so many things that had to have happened in order for me to get into the position that I was in, from almost ruining it for moving or not being available to take the position. But yeah, all the stuff that had led there, it makes me look back on it fondly. When at the time it was like I wanted to leave Oklahoma. I was so done with being here and so happy that I had stayed. So.
Dude, Oklahoma's a cooler place than I think some people realize. Like, and I get it. I mean, if you grew up here and this is kind of all you've seen,
to it.
But man, there's so many people moving to Oklahoma City, and like, dude, there's even some like the community, like especially the fitness community, the amount of people moving and like being part of like I think AJ Sims, like, I don't know, are coming to Oklahoma City to, and I'm not 100% sure why, but I think it's a big reason. Like he enjoys the city. He likes the city quite a bit. I mean, we moved here because of all the opportunities that Oklahoma City was having.
So. Oh, for sure. And I think something that's been even cooler to be a part of and that I'm looking forward to being more of a part of for the next 5-10 plus years is the Oklahoma fitness community has grown a tremendous amount, even in the past 2 or 3 years. From bigger names and bigger coaches that we have here to more Oklahomans getting their pro card to powerlifting being like such a growing sport. Like whenever I first started competing in high school, we had 1, maybe 2 meets a year. And next year we're going to have a meet almost every year across a couple federations. So just to see that transition in the past couple of years has been so cool. So I love Oklahoma. I love Norman in particular, but Oklahoma fitness is super cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. We get a ton of people. Like you'd be really surprised. There's a lady who has been shopping with us recently who her and her husband just moved here what was supposed to be temporarily, and now they are like looking at buying a house and staying here permanently because they like the area so much. And she has her pro card in I think 3 or 4 different categories.
Oh wow.
Yep. And so she's in the sweetest lady too. Like she's super cool. And so you're just like, oh, hello, other like impressive fitness person. So real quick, because I know we're getting very close to our 2-hour mark, but isn't that crazy how fast 2 hours goes by? But you're talking about how people, spoke about you 2 years ago or whatever. What I'm curious about is how you spoke about me after our first interview.
You put me in a sticky position. For those who don't know, we have a couple of interviews here at TRIAD whenever you first get hired on. My first one was with Kevin. And I remember Kevin had like slides on, gym shorts, and like a TRIAD t-shirt or something. I showed up and I was like, this is the coolest place ever. This dude's so chill. Like they just set the bar perfectly of like what I was supposed to expect. And then a couple days later, they bring me in for interview number 2, and I'm told that I'm meeting with Kevin. And I show up to Quail, and I remember Ryan was the one who was there. I was like, I didn't know Ryan at the time either. I like walked into the store, no one was there. I was like, okay, like kind of nervous. I've heard this one's like kind of a bigger one. Try to dress nice and everything, and I show up, and he like leads me to the back, and like Thomas is there. And I've never seen you in my life. I've never seen you on social media. I've never heard about you. I don't even know your name. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And of course, there's like the physical intimidation. You have like your multi-piece suit, your big watch on.
And I'm a big bitch.
What was the water thing you said?
Were you the one that I said these tend to go a while? I would get a ball of water, and you were like, or I was like, "Do you want a ball of water?" And you're like, "No." And I was like, "These go a while. I'll grab you one."
Yeah. And I was like, "Okay, cool."
Okay.
I remember sitting down. We had like a pretty lengthy talk, and what had been mentioned in it was like hiring on for Norman. You would be who I was working under whenever I was there. So I left the interview and I went home to my parents, and they were asking how it went. And I was like, I think it went pretty good. Like, I think I did solid. Like, I think I'm probably a good candidate. And they were like, oh, well, who interviewed you? And I was like, this asshole, dude. And I was like, he kept saying that like if I got hired on, I'd have to work under him, and I was like, I don't know if I want that. It's like, it seems like a cool opportunity. Like I should see it through.
But at what cost?
Yeah, I was like, but pray for me. And here we are,
Well,
like
look at us now.
3 years later.
A
Yeah.
couple of peas in a pot
I think
from
it's
Norman.
That's right. Yeah, we've been very close over the last 3 years, but it's really funny the dynamic of going to that to then like working the first day with
Oh,
me down in Norman, and it's like, oh, what happened to the suit guy? You just a goober.
Within 2 weeks, we were like cracking jokes. You were making fun of my weird eating habits. We were going through training.
Not much has changed.
I remember,
Nothing.
I remember when you guys first really started to like finally like get to know each other and get comfortable with each other. Because I would come in and you guys would have the weirdest shit we would be talking
Giggling.
about. Yeah,
Well, one of the strange, cool things to happen with us working together all the time and seeing each other nearly daily is creating almost our own language.
Oh yeah.
I was just about to say that. I would come in, like I'd be like, oh yeah, Thomas and Preston are working today, and I'd come in and you guys would be speaking a different language. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with these
Weird
guys?
things happen when you work 21 days in a row.
The best part is like there would be words that would be created that 5 seconds after they're created, we're like, I don't know what that initially was supposed to mean, but we're gonna start saying it.
Yeah, no, it's easy. If Preston's like not feeling motivated, you just slide him a plate of dino nuggies and he's ready for the day.
You remember when we figured out about the air fried chicken nuggets?
Oh man, we went through that Norman location. Went through. I can't tell you how many frozen bags of Tyson air fried chicken nuggets.
Whenever we initially found them, I remember both of us going through a bag a day for a couple days.
Dude, they're
and these are
good.
like full bags of frozen air fried chicken nuggets.
Dude, they're honestly like calorie to protein ratio is pretty solid on them.
Air fried chicken nuggets.
Dude.
I think you guys got a list on that for a little bit.
Yeah.
We were preaching the gospel, that's for sure.
We went through phases. There was that. There was the Jimmy Dean breakfast bowls. There was milk.
I was almost a Jimmy Dean sponsored athlete at one point.
Milk and tortillas.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I think it's been about 2 hours, right? Yeah, we're at our 2 hour mark. It's crazy how fast it goes by.
I know.
Yeah, Ryan's got to get home because Ellie has the bar tomorrow.
She's going to a bar tomorrow. That's why you have to go home.
Yeah.
She's got a problem.
7 a.m.
Oof. That's so
That's
early.
early, yeah.
She's really
What bars
got-
are open at that point?
Yeah. What's happening? But dude, it's I could just speak personally here as somebody who, has worked side by side with you for a long time, and now getting to watch you kind of fill a role down in Norman that I think I was pretty aware of pretty early, and I remember talking to him that I thought that you were going to do great. And I told him not long after we hired you that I thought that we had hired the next Norman manager. And so it's been really cool for me, from my perspective, to be able to hand that store off to you and see you kind of flourish with it and see how well you've been able to do, even to the point where I'll stop down in Norman. It's been a long time now, but I'll stop down in Norman every once in a while, and I'll go around to a couple of gyms, catch a workout or something, and just say hi to people. And man, I can't tell you how many compliments I get from the people in the community and how well, because they're people who I know. And so they're like, oh, and they're always like, man, Preston's killing it. He's doing super good. And so everybody that I've talked to has always had just like rave reviews of how you're doing down there. And so it's been a super cool thing for me. I know personally, obviously the company, but just for me personally, to kind of watch you grow from training you to take customers to, you actually just, running the store completely now. And so I'm super thankful for not just you as a coworker, but you as a friend. And it's been a really cool 3 years, and I'm excited to keep making languages with you for a long time, buddy.
Oh yeah, appreciate that for
You
sure.
guys will probably be reunited at the warehouse
It's
or
gonna
the
be-
HQ eventually.
So we're gonna have our own Guam Gweep corner.
It
the
was
Guam Queen.
one of the last things I said to you whenever it was your last day working in Norman. You're like, hey, this is official. Like tomorrow you show up. Like this is your place. I was like, we'll work together again soon.
That's right.
So
yeah, one day it'll happen,
That's
man.
right.
Man, I know we didn't touch a whole lot on we touched a lot on you working with formulas, but didn't necessarily touch on the process, man. But I know one really cool thing for me, man, was as much experience as I had, especially with like working with customers in the store and working with ingredients and formulas, and everybody that works at the store is an extreme like ingredient nerd. Like you have to go through a pretty rigorous test just to work the floor. But to watch you go through the test, score, I think higher than pretty much anyone. I think Kaylin is the only one that scored as high as you did on that test, and then continue to like respect the test, but then continue your education within ingredients. Like I think Anthony makes fun of you for reading PubMed for fun.
Yeah.
But to just to like really like have someone on staff that like just takes it to a whole nother level is just really cool, and it builds a lot of trust, because, and I explain to people all the time, man, that when when we have, a certain ingredient pop up, like if we're talking about something that's, relatively new, maybe within the last 3 years, I can tell you a lot about it, but Preston will be able to cite all of the studies that have ever been done on this ingredient and how well they were performed. And it's just, you just take it to a whole nother level. And I think the thing that gave us trust to be able to let you start to handle it with us overseeing it. I think the thing that's built a lot of trust for me is, especially with a lot of the stuff that's come out this year, especially with like Pre-Plus, the new pump formula, the new test formula, the new sleep formula, all have gotten just extremely good feedback on them from all the way from customers to some of the retailers that we work with now. Like people that are also ingredient nerds are looking at these formulas and just pumped about them, man. Is really cool to have someone that just like, you just take it to a whole nother level that any of us could. So
appreciate that for sure. And I hope to keep doing a better and better job at it. And I do have to pinch myself sometimes. I mean, I think recently with Pre-Plus coming out and a couple other cool products coming out, getting in the hands of more retailers and being able to, whether it's chalk it up with other people in the industry or see other big people in the industry post stuff on their stories, and the stores that they own starting to post that they're excited about products that I had some doing with, some writing the formula to. It's beyond my wildest of dreams per a couple years ago. So I'm excited to keep doing it, get better at it, and excited to see the day where we reformulate Pre-Plus or these other things and make them even cooler.
Yeah, for real.
Always trying to be the best that we possibly can, man.
Oh yeah.
But man, you play a huge role within management and are just a genuinely good friend of all of us, especially with Thomas here. So I'm sure it was fun to reminisce. Watch you guys reminisce a little bit. The Spoopy boys.
The Spoopy boys.
Always.
Back together.
Hey, it'll be cool, and on episode 125 or whatever it is, for us to look back and be like, hey, you remember when we were chalking it up about old times in Norman and whatever. So
and we're gonna be chalking it up about that time we did a podcast in the warehouse on couches.
Yeah, right.
Oh, it'll be deep to the poop cast.
The poop cast.
Hey, I'll say it now. Whenever that does happen, I'll try to go back, clip this small snippet, and we can play it over the video in 2 or 3 years from now, and it'll be cool.
Nice.
Yeah, that will be cool.
All right. Well, Preston, we appreciate you. Kevin, I appreciate you too, I guess. And Ryan, always producing, but we got to let... have we ever told you we appreciate you? He's getting the mic.
Yeah, a few times.
Okay, cool. We do. We
Always
appreciate
appreciate
you.
you.
But Ellie's got to get to a bar or take the bar or something. I don't know what's happening. But we appreciate you guys. Episode 25. We appreciate all 10 of you who listen. So.
Thanks, guys.